Adrian, this is your fourth video discussing the state of WarioWare. Are you running out of ideas? Yes. Yes, I am. Before you dislike the video, let me explain the title first. A few weeks ago, I received a comment from this guy, and the comment itself was nothing special, but it was what he said at the end that really stood out to me. The comment said, WarioWare itself also kind of lost some novelty over time. And that got me thinking, to what extent is that true? Looking at a sales chart of the entire series, it seems like a lot of interest was lost after WarioWare Smooth Moves, but is it because these games lack novelty, or is it something else? I mean, these are all good games, but they had little opportunity to sell well. WarioWare DIY gave the player the tools to create their very own microgames, albeit a little limited in gameplay. Now, this was very cool for its time, but if you weren't a fan of making your own games, then there really was no substance here. There were some standalone microgames built in, but they were made with the game's tools, so they couldn't get that crazy. Overall, this wasn't a great pick for players who wanted to enjoy a fast-paced arcade experience, which is what WarioWare is at its heart. Game & Wario is hard to classify as a WarioWare title since the majority of the games revolve around mini-games, not microgames. Microgames and mini-games are not interchangeable. Also, it released on the Wii U, which is pretty much a death sentence. WarioWare Gold, despite its slow sales, is often regarded as the best game in the entire series. It takes elements from every single game beforehand, except that one. Unfortunately, it released a year after the Switch came out, so it was tied to a console that nobody cared about. So yeah, these games underperformed only because of their circumstances. Nothing else, just that. But it's not that simple. WarioWare's underperformance demonstrates the fall of arcade-style video games. You see, as gaming gets more and more complex and is able to take on more forms than ever, the interest for arcade-style games has decreased dramatically. And sure, Get It Together was able to do pretty well, but that was only because of its novelty. It was the first WarioWare game on Switch, one of Nintendo's biggest consoles. So yes, WarioWare is losing its novelty. And how do I know this? A year after WarioWare Get It Together, we got Move It, which is a more traditional WarioWare game, and that one didn't do well. Move It flopped compared to every other game. And sure, these are just launch sales, but this is a great demonstration of how WarioWare is slowly sinking into obscurity. There was zero reason for Move It to do as bad as it did in sales, and if WarioWare can't find more gimmicks to make microgames about, then it'll be phased out of Nintendo's future. Now, it might seem crazy to assume all of this just based on the failure of a few games, but by the looks of it, WarioWare thrives most when capitalizing off the console's main gimmick, or some other sort of aspect. They've done basic button controls, touch, motion, camera. I don't see much room for how they could expand the series. They could do some sort of sequel to these past gimmicks, but based on the performance of Move It, I don't think that's going to be an option. So in my honest opinion, which I know will be received well, I think WarioWare has lost some novelty, and to answer the very clickbaity thumbnail, I think WarioWare is slowly dying as a series that is deeply rooted in arcade fast-paced action. This is not to say that there isn't an audience for this sort of stuff in the future, but I don't think it'll be big enough to warrant new games consistently from Nintendo. The claims in this video all depend on how Nintendo continues to make their consoles and how the gaming industry continues to move forward. Who knows, maybe one day we could get WarioWare on VR or something else we haven't heard of. But with the information available to us now and past sales trends, I think WarioWare is on a path to becoming just another F-Zero or Star Fox. And I don't want it to be. I love this series and I want to see it do well, but with how things are going right now, the future looks grim. That's how I see it at least, but if you have any other objections or anything you want to add on to this video, be sure to comment down. But with all that being said, have a good one and stay weekly.